Welcome to The Eyes of Indigo with your infinitely curious hosts, Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Our show is broadcast live at 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays. Socio-spiritual topics are laced with humor as we discuss weird stuff in a rational way. Learn more about us in our first episode, The Prequel. Shows are recorded and available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, and other aggregators. A keyword searchable index is at iriscarter.com/EOI directory. Share ideas and comments in the program chat or by email. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our show. Let us know you're here by typing your hello in the comments because we are thrilled to welcome you as we begin another adventure right now.
The purpose of our show is our motto that was generously given to us by Iris's sister, and it is discussing weird stuff in a rational way. And that is the purpose, the focus of our whole journey with this podcast. Bringing light to stuff that is hard to understand otherwise, and having a sense of humor about it as we go is absolutely required. So feel free to laugh with us as we go. Tonight's episode is, Iris, can you tell us more about this?
Spoon bending. It's our connection to everything, and we'll get more into that. But recognizing every element on our plane has existence or essence. I'm sorry. Yes, it all exists too, but has an essence, and we can connect to it is a gateway to understanding the power and influence we have within. So we're asking you to join us as we discuss all this and explore your innate and divine abilities. And the spoons that you see on the
pictures,
promotional, those are like, well, one of them, the two of them are on the left are spoons that Margot bent, and the ones on the right are from, I don't remember. We were bending them one weekend. We were playing with, and then the ones on the right, when I went to Goodwill when we were going to play with spoons, and I bought a bunch of new spoons, I ended up coming home going, where am I going to put these spoons? Because I don't want to mix them up with my regular silverware. So I made a bouquet. Well, I was going to say, before we actually get into how to do it, maybe let's talk about, one of the first things that comes into people's minds is the Matrix. And, the kids sitting there and the spoons bend in all different kinds of ways. And Neo's looking at him and he goes, what you have to realize is it's not it's not bending the spoon, it's realizing the spoon isn't there, which is a little bit different in the Matrix, but there has been people that have said our world is our own illusion. So in a way, it does kind of feed into that. There's lots of theories. It's just hard to prove any of them. But I can remember as a kid talking to inanimate objects or feeling the energy off of them and recognizing, my dolls had so much energy. They scared me,
Well, but feel that way. I believe that became a movie called Toy Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were not alone in that perception. Yeah.
And then, I would sit at the table, and then suddenly I'd realize this table has energy. This table, I can talk to this table if I want. And what was really cool was a few years ago, more than a few years ago, I got a bunch of science fiction books, and one of them is a bunch of short stories. And this one of the stories in it is about this girl who was homeless on the street. This guy takes her in because it's raining, and he felt like, oh, she's my daughter's age. I need to take care of her. It was like a holiday weekend or something. And he takes her to his house, and while she's in the house, unbeknownst to him, she's talking to everything. Everything in the house is talking to her. She goes in and she's like, "Oh, this must be his son's room or whatever," and the furniture's talking back to her and that kind of thing. And I'm like, I can relate to that. Because everything has essence and energy.
So we'll prattle on just a little bit longer for anybody that wants to go grab a fork or a spoon. Guys, avoid knives. That's because you're going to be holding on to it, and we don't need to be grabbing blades. Do not do knives. Get a fork or a spoon that is stainless steel, that is some kind of steel, and you can play along. And we will guide you through it. We're going to try it ourselves here on camera, and we'll see what happens. We'll have fun with it. So far, it has worked for me every single time. And every single time that Iris has tried it so far, it's worked. Sometimes it worked spontaneously. Just say, "Oh, you want to bend?" Okay. She reached over and went, boop.
Yeah, I had been I had been looking at my spoons, and the reason I have so many is I do want to do this with my grandchildren. I want to, play around with it with them. And I was like, well, I can't sit here and keep practicing with all these spoons, because if I do, then I'm not going to have anything to share with them. I'll have to make another trip to Goodwill and, take my magnifying glass so I can figure out if that's stainless steel. And, but I had been going by and kind of talking both telepathically and out loud to the spoons and going, "Y'all look so nice in that cup. And I know I do want to bend you. I'm going to use you." I've been kind of, and then one day I was sitting at the table and it was like, I looked and I said, "Oh, so you're ready to be bent now?" And I picked it up and it was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "No, I can't do y'all. I got to save some of y'all."
That'll make even more sense in a few minutes. We're going to talk you through actually having a conversation with the spoon. So another place we wanted to start at was, what is spoon bending? And a lot of people have the idea that it is like that video, the still you showed from the movie The Matrix, where they're just looking at the spoon, thinking about the spoon, and on its own, the spoon goes meow and bends on its own. Yeah, that's not what we're doing. Okay. The majority of spoon bending is done with minimal hand force. Most of the time when you see a spoon bending on its own, that is actually an illusionist magician sleight of hand trick, or it's CGI in a movie, which means it's computer generated and it didn't really happen that way. What we're going to do tonight is actually bend what is a steel rod with your bare hands and almost minimal, well, yes, absolutely minimal effort. To start with, try it. All right. I mean, obviously, if you go, you can totally Green Hulk and bend it like crazy. But normally, under normal duress, and you can see, we're trying.
You can see it flex a teeny bit, but it's just not going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's as far as it goes. So that's where it started, and it's still there. So by the time we bend it, though, it's going to be a thing of going, eep, and you're not going to see our fingers getting, pinched and thumbs turning white to bend it. No, it's going to just go and bend on its own. And it's mind-blowing when it happens to you. When you first do it, there's a word for what I'm looking for, and it shot right out of my mind. Your perception of reality changes because you're breaking the laws of physics. And you're letting it touch the spoon, and the spoon's enjoying it too. Take another deep breath. Now, while the spinning light is touching your spoon, ask the spoon if it will bend for you, please, or whatever words you want. Spoon bend, spoon please bend. I want the spoon to bend when it's ready. You're addressing the spoon, you're telling it what you want. Take another deep breath. Blow out. Open your eyes. Be here now. Take the spoon and look at it and see if the spoon wants to bend right now. Mine does. There it goes. Ta-da! Iris's did too. Now watch. I can't bend it any further.
Yeah, mine got to a stopping point.
That's
and
it.
Won't go.
And it will not. Look, my fingers are turning red and white underneath. It isn't gonna. Boom, boom, y'all, boom. Give me a bell ring, sweetie. And one, yeah, there you go. Yay! All right. For those of you that it did not bend, there's more. Here is Happy Saturnalia, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. There are, I think, the high holiday of light, Diwali, happened recently as well in the Hindu tradition. And there's also Kwanzaa coming up. Happy all of them. And happy Festivus for the rest of us. Winter solstice. Not just the shortest day of the year, but also the favorite nonconformist Christmas replacing hipster holiday extravaganza.
And there was another one I had. I was looking for it. I cannot find. Is this the? Well, if it's not. Yeah, Christmas, the time of year when all faiths put away their beliefs and celebrate paganism.
Yes, they do. A little bit of a Christmas bell.
I can't find them all, so we'll.
That's all right. That's all right.
Throw them out a couple at a time.
If you want to know more about what is pagan about Christmas, if by chance you don't already know, go check out our past December podcasts in 21 and in 20. And we have shows dedicated to all of the belief systems attached to winter solstice / Christmas / Yuletide. And we even have some haunted Christmas creepy story tales from around the world that are attached to this holiday and other belief systems. So yeah, go check that out.
Kind of. And I went on a deep dive, and I'm not going to try to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to share because I thought it was just some cool information. I thinking about solstice and how, the
rotations,
the earth is the earth is spinning and going around the sun, and so when at this time of year, the South Pole is tilted more toward the sun. Mm-hmm. So that's giving the Southern Hemisphere summertime.
More light. Right.
Yeah. And then as we keep going on our travels around the sun, we end up kind of tilting the other way. And that gives us our Northern Hemisphere.
More light.
Right. Yeah. And because of that, I asked myself the question, how do we know what's north and what's south? Because we're in outer space.
Yeah,
and we're just, and don't just say, oh, it's
what's designated, what qualifies for a north and what qualifies for a south, considering we're all just floating in the vast emptiness of, not very empty, but in the vastness of space. Right.
Right. And it's like, okay, they took a compass and they've made one end north and one end south, but that still doesn't say why the end that pointed in this direction was.
Why is that called north?
Yeah.
Why is that necessarily up when it's the same all the way around? Yeah.
Exactly. And so I found some tidbits that I thought were kind of interesting. And the websites, this is called
On
Bad
Sci-Fi
Astronomy.
Channel.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on sci-fi, sci-fi.com, and this guy kind of answers it, and I'm going to try to skim through some of this. So when you spin something like a perfect orb and you spin it, where it's
2 points appear.
rotating, there's 2 points where it stops rotating. That's where your axis is. And so if you look down at the one end of it, it's spinning counterclockwise. And if you look at the other end, it's spinning clockwise. Right? I mean,
Right.
is that following me?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So we're floating around and it's spinning. And right now, the way it's defined, South Pole is clockwise, North Pole is counterclockwise. So the International Astronomical Union is the official keeper of names, rules, and such for astronomy. And they have to have a definition for the North Pole of a spinning object, and it uses the Earth and Sun as its basis. So if you look at the Earth,
A diagram.
the diagram, you've got
of the solar system. Of the solar system.
And you've got the sun and the Earth, and they're kind of in the similar positions with the Earth going around the sun. And we're also kind of in the same plane, and they call it what's an angular momentum, and they call it, I'm trying to find the name, an invariable plane, which means if you could hack the sun, if you could imagine an equator around the sun, we're spinning around the sun basically on that equator.
And so are all the other planets in theory.
In theory, so are all the other planets. And so what they say is based on that, all the tops of the planets and the sun, they're spinning counterclockwise. That makes it north. And the bottom is south. And the guy says, okay, I get that in theory, but
there's two exceptions.
And I'm trying to find that. Okay. That Venus and Uranus are flipped upside down, or basically what we would consider their North Poles, based on the fact that our North Pole is in the northern hemisphere as the sun, but theirs spins clockwise. They're spinning in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So in essence, it would be that they're upside down. If you looked at, because they're spinning clockwise and the other end is our southern, in comparison to our southern end, they're spinning the opposite direction. They're saying, no, it's I just lost myself.
You're getting stuck.
That's everybody else. Yeah. Okay. Sun is spinning. Venus and Uranus have North Poles that point in the same direction as Earth, but they're spinning in the opposite direction.
Right.
And so he was like, well, they're flipped upside down, and the AUI or AIU or whoever it was, they said, no, north is north regardless. We're basing it on the Earth and the sun. So it doesn't matter what direction they're spinning in. Other than Earth's spinning in the correct direction.
And that right there, and there's a gap of information and lack of continuity that gives us pause for why.
Yeah.
What is it that you don't want us to know? There seems to be a lack.
Why are two planets out of whack?
Why are those two planets?
Why doesn't our moon spin?
Mm-hmm.
Why do everybody else's moons spin and go around their planets like we spin and go around the sun, but ours doesn't? And
so what's up with Uranus and Venus? Right.
I don't know. What's up your ass? No.
Exactly. We're sharing a little much here. Okay.
And then one of the things that I just realized in the past couple of years and have learned some more stuff about that just totally just blew my mind. We think about our solar system and here's happy sun and everything's spinning around it and we're going around and gravity, all that good stuff, and everything's fine and hunky-dory. And then you start realizing, oh, but there's another solar system and there's another one and there's another one and there's more galaxies that have more, multiple, in billions of galaxies and, all that. And it's really cool. And you kind of go, okay, well, we're over here and they're over there. And this is so many light years away. The thing that really just added another whole level to that is the whole fucking thing is moving.
Is moving in a giant coordinated symphony.
And we're moving at millions of miles an hour. Holy cow, strap your seatbelts
hundreds of thousands to millions of miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people think of the solar system as like a static disk with the burning sun in the middle and all these, planets, doing their thing. Actually, it's the sun zooming forward and everything is corkscrewing after it as it goes through. It doesn't look anything like what you might think, what the books have told you.
It moves.
It all moves in a coordinated thing.
Oh, and this was when we were talking about Saturnalia. Winter solstice, party like a Celt. Woohoo!
Bring on the fire and the festivities and the dancing and general Bacchus raucous.
Yes. It is time to have fun. Winter solstice.
A few more memes to poke a little more fun at the solstice. Winter solstice is my favorite pagan holiday, co-opted by Christians.
Which that's how, when Christianity came about, they were like, come to the dark side. We have cookies. It was
Christmas cookies.
Well, we have Festival of Lights too, but we're going to call them Christmas lights and we're going to put them on green trees. And, they were already doing the evergreens trees and the lights and all that stuff. And it was
the Yule log and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And big news flash, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. Hello.
He was born most likely late summer.
Yeah. And so anyway, this is funny. Winter solstice hotline? Yes, we've lit the candles, drew a pentagram on the floor. What? No Catholics allowed? Mary Catherine, go home, sweetie.
It makes you think of some favorite aunt.
Yeah.
Checking up to make sure we're doing it right. Whoops, nope, Mary Catherine, time for you to go, sweetie.
Yeah, some people call Butterball Hotline on Thanksgiving.
That's even more clear. The Butterball Hotline, Turkey Hotline. Yes.
Yeah, we've done this, we've done that. And why hadn't the little red thing popped out?
The sugar holidays, baby. They start with Halloween and they continue through Christmas and into Valentine's. Yeah.
I don't celebrate Halloween because it's a pagan holiday, but I can't wait for Christmas.
I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell him.
Let it go.
Frozen. Like everything else, there's a Christian interpretation to the age of Pisces, age of Aquarius, and there's also a pagan interpretation to the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. Those being the most recent changes. Usually an age lasts anywhere from several hundred to several thousands of years. And the theory goes that affected humanity the most right now that you keep hearing about is the age of Pisces recently ended and the age of Aquarius began. And
now also, weren't all these ages
Everything has been everything
predictive.
everywhere has always been predicted.
Yeah, well, I
see.
mean, and it's like, oh, when the age of Aquarius comes, this is what's going to happen. So, I mean,
Oh, it ordains something.
so like, yeah, so like
Foretells.
when in the Pisces, like it's not because Jesus was born, it was because it was saying something great was going to happen. It was
And that
related
was
to,
one of the things.
yeah, okay. All right.
Was,
So go ahead.
was,
I'll let you.
was the coming of Messiahs. Yeah, it was the coming of the Messiahs that we eventually know as one Messiah. So in Christian terms, that we know in Christian terms, there's more. But I digress. Back to the age of Pisces came in theory when Jesus did. Fish bringer, Pisces, a fisher of
Loaves
men.
and the fishies.
Loaves and the fishes story, the fisher of men, so on and so on. The old cult symbol for Christianity, the pagan fish symbol. And until the time of Christ came along, and then they changed it to a symbol of torture and pain and death, which is commonly called a cross, and a crucifix, very popular among Catholics. Yeah, get that dead, bloody person hanging right up on there on your necklace, on your wall, on your church. But anyway,
That is just one of my pet peeves.
yeah, it's a pet peeve for me too. Yeah, I'm dead, mangled, bloody person. And I understand they're trying to say Jesus suffered for us. I get that. I still don't see why you have to hang dead meat all over the place to get the point across.
Yeah.
I think that's overkill, no pun intended. Well, thank you. I got the silent bell for. I got a snort out of that one. Oh yeah, I'm going to give you the silent bell treatment.
It is. So was it silent? It wasn't silent.
I didn't hear anything. It was just shining if there's no sound. I don't believe in Santa Claus anymore.
Where the hell? I don't know why, because it's loud as hell here. Y'all tell us if you can hear the bell or not.
Yeah, okay. It's that's wild. Yeah, I hear nothing. I just see the bell flapping around.
No, it was silent night, silent bell.
Technology, I swear, is sneaking right up on us. All right, so the age of Aquarius. We digress as usual.
Right, so
That's normal. Flow with it, go with it. Ask us questions if you like. Comments, go for it. So, Age of Aquarius is one of the. There's a lot of hallmarks to what the Age of Aquarius brought, but one of them, in terms of why you hear it a lot in our metaphysical society and philosophical societies and religious, spiritual societies and groups and cultures, is the Age of Aquarius is when humans were no longer. Aha! I saw the comment. Humans were no longer limited in knowledge to relegating healing and wisdom and philosophy to just a select few. That was the age of Pisces, where certain people were chosen to carry on ancient wisdom and knowledge. Now, age of Aquarius, everyone is entitled to, let's for generic purposes call it master level knowledge. All humans are entitled, all humans are worthy, all humans are multiple reincarnations, very wise, totally worthy, can hold it. And anybody who's a new soul, a first timer, whatever you want to call it, they too have no agendas and no preconceived notions and no karma. So they too are qualified to hold high vibrating ancient knowledge and wisdom, along with us old timers who have a lot of wear and tear on our reincarnation agendas.
Talk about trauma and torture. They need to go through it. I'm jealous.
I know. When you run into somebody that has no karma and no experience, and their energy is just.
It sounds like
it's the height of naive. It's the height of naivete. It's the height of naivete, but the innocence and purity and just straight love, joy, and kindness that come out of these entities, which are usually children at this point, anywhere from like kindergarten to newborns. But some of them can go all the way up into their teens. There's some that old. It's fascinating. It's fascinating being around those people, but they too are entitled to ancient wisdom because they, in this theory, they were came to Earth during the age of Aquarius, where humans wake up to their higher selves, their master level selves.
And kind of following up to that, tonight's program is about cryptids. We're going to do kind of an overview, not a deep dive, but an overview. We move the jar. And I threw a few in this picture, but yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore. Dorothy was scared of lions and tigers and bears until she had to deal with flying monkeys. So what's in your neck of the wood?
We're going to tell you what seems to be showing up in various necks of woods in this country and elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those creatures.
It's almost kind of hard to know exactly where to start, but I guess we could start with
what does cryptid mean, and what is cryptid zoology? What is that referring to? Because we keep using that word.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about that? Because I've been going on for a little bit.
Okay. All right. Cryptid zoology is the study of zoo. It's based on the word zoology. It's the study of animals. In this case, cryptid animals, also called cryptid. They are called cryptids by themselves. What is a cryptid? Those are unusual beasts and animals and creatures that are generally relegated to myth and legend, except for there is occasional evidence and photography available substantiating that they probably did exist or still do exist, depending on what they are and where they are. For example, big one, Bigfoot. Is a really common one. Chupacabra is a big one in Latin culture. Loch Ness Monster is another popular one. But then there are less heard of ones, such as pterodactyls, wolfmen, lizardmen, frogmen, mermaids, and more. Yeah, there she goes. She's got little frog blood in her. Hi, Lisa. Yay. Hello. And there's more.
Yeah.
There's dozens and dozens more. We're just hitting the big ones that tend to frequent North America, so that it's relevant to you, our audience, for the most part. So that's what we mean when we say the word cryptids. CRYPT as in Tom, ID as in dog. Cryptid or cryptid zoology, the study of them.
Cryptozoology. Yeah.
Cryptozoology, maybe. Yep, there's another way. Bigfoot is an international star. And we're showing, Iris has popped up a picture that AI artwork has created based on descriptions of what Bigfoots look like, and that's the composite it ended up with. But Bigfoot shows up as Yetis. They show up in Asia. They show up in Australia. They show up in Europe. Harry and the Hendersons is a very popular Bigfoot comic.
They show up in movies.
For sure. And Iris has her own rendition of the Bigfoot call. Give us can you belt that one out? That was a quiet one. It was her baby Sasquatch.
Oh, really? It didn't. It probably the darn.
It modified it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we believe.
Yeah, but yeah. What was his name?
Chewbacca.
In Chewbacca in Star Wars. I mean, is that was Bigfoot?
That was
obviously.
a Bigfoot. Yeah, there was a whole planet of Wookiees. Wookiees are Bigfoots.
So while we're on the topic, let's tell them about our experience. Because, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, I know I know local people that go down around between Charlotte and the mountains, kind of in the
Foothills.
in the Appalachians
Yeah.
to do some searching.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've seen enough pictures that you're kind of like, yeah, it could be a guy in a gorilla suit walking through and it could be a joke. But
some of them, there's no way.
We've got a lot more woods and wilderness than people realize in our world. And it's kind of like things that make you go, And so, yeah, there's a Bigfoot festival, Lisa pointed out. Yes,
there's one in Ohio that we know about. I'm sure they're all over the place. Yeah. Squatching. It's called squatching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sasquatch. Yeah. And one of the things that kind of made it a little more realistic was you were talking about before we left about seeing where the one theory is that they're interdimensional creatures and that they
highly intelligent interdimensional creatures. Yeah.
So they can come across the veil, so to speak, or pop in and out as they
and
want.
Disappear.
Maybe they don't actually live here. But they're portals.
Some do, some don't, from what I can tell. Most of them don't.
Yeah.
They just visit for whatever reason, which is our number one question. Why do you guys keep coming here? Do you live here? Or is there something we have that you are fascinated by or need or want? But we haven't actually talked to one face-to-face. However, as Iris mentioned, we believe that we experienced them a little bit. Please continue, Iris.
Yeah, so
last week
we were at the conference, and I think it was on Wednesday night. A woman came in and first of all, that park is a known area for sightings. It's one of the busy areas
park.
where they
yeah
it's a state park, and there have been sightings reported there. And this one woman came in. She was in cabins that were adjacent to the resort where the conference was happening. And she came in and was talking about in the middle of the night, she heard this whooping noise and heard banging. It was like flat-fisted bang, bang, bang on the side of her wall.
And tree knock. And she heard the tree knock too.
Yeah. And so that was kind of like everybody's like, oh, And we were kind of about a quarter mile from the lodge and staying in a cabin, and probably less than 50 yards from our cabin was the bathhouse. And it was our last night there on Thursday night. And we had been out to the campfire, and we'd gone up to the UFO site place where they were looking for UFOs.
And we came back to overlooking the valley and the river. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we came back to our site, and Margot and I walked up to the bathhouse together. And as we were going up, we heard some people going, woo, 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 woo. It was kind of almost like a coyote, almost like people, sort of somewhere in between. And we kind of laughed. We said, well, it's not coyotes because it's not multiples, and it's not going on and on like dogs and coyotes will do. It's probably just somebody screwing around. And we go to the bathroom and all, and then go back to our cabin. We go to bed. The next morning, the other woman who was in the cabin with us said, my God, did you hear the Sasquatch out there last night? And we're like, what? We did not. And she said it was loud, and it was right outside the cabin. And so we looked up on the internet, thank goodness for the internet, and we found different calls of Sasquatch that have been recorded. And we said, does it sound like this one? No, it didn't sound like that. Does it sound like this one? And it was one that went whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah. And she goes, that's it. That's whoop, it. And it was the same sound Margot and I had heard the night before. So it was really crazy that we heard it off in the woods.
Prior.
And then
Yeah.
And then she heard it in the middle of the night and said it sounded like it was right outside the window kind of thing. And so we're like, And it was quiet on the camp. There weren't a lot of people camping. There weren't pranksters out there.
It was all
The
senior
people that had
citizens
children
and
had
parents.
small children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super quiet. I mean, people didn't even, nobody was drinking. Nobody was having campfire parties. Very few decorative lights. It was a very, very sedate campground. There weren't teenagers. There weren't college kids. There, messing around kind of thing. It wasn't that energy at all the whole week. Something went down, and our cabin partner friend, she said she heard the whoop whoop, and she also heard the tree knocking. Which, if you're not familiar, guys, the Bigfoots the Sasquatch are known for taking logs and banging them on trees because it makes a really long, loud thok, thok, thok that can be heard for miles. So that helped. And the speaker that heard it, she said she heard it. She looked at the time at 4:30 in that morning. Yes, Bigfoot Museum in Roanoke Rapids, I believe. Okay.
Yeah. And then Lisa, are they whoop whooping to get away from their female mates?
I said, we don't know why they're coming. And Lisa wrote to get away from their female mates. And what's interesting, just a little bit further, before we didn't get to, nobody commented on this during the conference because the conference covered so much information over the 4 days that it went on. But traditionally, it's reported that Bigfoots are not big fans of dogs. They don't seem to like dogs. They seem to be afraid of them. They seem to be hostile to them, and dogs tend to be hostile towards them or afraid of them. Not sure what's going on there, but what I've seen is coming to this dimension, whether they're multidimensional or whether they're just the world's best hide and seekers, and they occasionally come out in front of humans. The way they react to us, the way they disappear, the way they are hostile about our best friends, the dogs, apparently being around humans is a threat to them. It is an endangerment to be near humans because they obviously actively avoid us up to recently. So that's why we're asking, why do y'all come here? And apparently there's been sightings, though, of Bigfoot children. All right, so they're juveniles, but not little ones. Their juveniles do come through. And apparently once in a while, a female will be identified. She has furry boobs. And I've seen
furry boobs.
Yeah, furry boobs.
Oh,
breasts.
Oh, okay.
She has furry breasts.
Okay, I didn't know if it was boots or boobs.
Furry tatas. So apparently the females come through too. Apparently the females are about the same size as the males. Until you get a close look at them, can you tell if their body features? They tend to look mammalian, almost like gorillas. They're often described as ape men or gorilla men. So that's how you can tell if they're female, is by their mammalian homoanatomy. Yeah. So, and there are different colors too. There's black, there's brown, there's blonde, there's white, there's yellow.
And there's different versions of the species. Some are considered like you never want to go near them because they're just vicious, and others are kind of like Harry and the Henderson types, but they don't, none of them really come close to people. And we heard a lot of this from the cryptid huntress. Her name is Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
And her, I'll throw her website up in just a minute, but Jessica, she told her story about how she got into it, and she's been actively with teams hunting and has had, she said, over 100 experiences with Sasquatch. And I think she said something like probably at least 20 face-to-face
encounters.
And one of her first, and she hunts with, she said a lot of the other hunters are people who are
Navy SEALs, Army
policemen.
Rangers, search and rescue, search and recovery professionals, stuff like that.
Yeah, so these are people who are professionally out in the woods, know their stuff. They never give away where exactly they go because they don't want to have other people go in and create
Problem.
issues. But she said her first encounter, first time she went out on a hunt, they were like in a tree line looking at an open field.
Can I, real quick, guys, we don't mean, she does not mean hunter, huntress, and hunting in the sense that it typically means. They're actually doing tracking. They're tracking.
Yes.
They are not shooting these beings. They are not killing them. They're not doing anything like that. They're literally just tracking them and documenting them. So I just wanted to clarify, they don't actually hunt and kill. That's not their thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like ghost hunters, cryptid hunters.
It's
that
like a ghost hunter. They're seeking.
Yeah.
They just seek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
And
Please continue.
and yeah, but her story was the first time. Okay, they were in a tree line looking at an open field that went up into a hill where previous sightings had been, and she volunteered and was sort of, they said, okay, go on out. She was going to walk across this field and go towards the hill where all these trees were
a tree line
seen before.
A tree line. Yeah.
And the guys in the bushes watching her had heat sensor cameras, and they could see her walking across the field. And she said she got out there and she heard somebody running up behind her. And she thought, they're messing this up. Why are they coming up behind me? But she kept walking kind of a little bit slower. And when she heard it get real close, she said, I used to play sports and I know what it's like when somebody tackles you. And so she kind of braced herself for a tackle.
She used to play rugby. Yeah.
She said, but instead of a tackle, she felt something brush by her legs and heard the running continue, but she couldn't see anything. And she lost her balance and kind of threw her hands up in the air. And she said that was throwing your hands up in the air was a signal to everybody, I need help.
Distress signal.
Right. And so one of the guys immediately comes running out. What's wrong? And you threw your hands up in the air. And she said, oh, I lost my balance. I thought one of y'all just ran out here. And they said, no, we're all still back there. And she said, well, what ran by me? And they said, we heard nothing. We saw nothing. There was no heat sensor of whatever it was that chased her down and brushed up against her. It didn't show up on the cameras, and she knew there were smells and feelings, and it was not in her imagination. So it's kind of cool that they don't even appear on heat sensor cameras. So that was kind of like her first experience, but she's had multiple, and she has actually seen them and knows for a fact she's seen them. So she's a true blue believer. We're hoping to get her. We talked to her at the conference and she's willing to come on the show. We're just in the process of trying to schedule it, and she can tell you a lot more about her
what she does. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're interested, I'm going to throw her
website.
Yeah, there you go. And
she does interviews and podcasts and reports a lot on different types of cryptids, not just Bigfoot. She does a variety of stuff. She does the little people and the pterodactyls and so on, and chupacabras and all that.
Yeah, which is kind of hard to believe that. I mean, that was one of the things that was mentioned, the pterodactyls, which I put on our little flyer. Holy cow!
That one blew me away. I was like, holy crap, that's one I hadn't heard of yet. There's pterodactyls in the sky, and have been. There's what? You've got a picture of somebody that shot one and held it up for trophy or something?
I don't have that picture. No.
They showed us pictures of that.
They showed that. It was an old picture. There's
old black and white from the 1800s, but people have footage. You can go on YouTube and whatever, and you can see footage of birds that have the long Yeah, the long beak and the long head and the giant bat wings, so to speak. And the flight pattern and the flap is not normal. One person was actually reported hunting in a swamp. I think it was in Florida, and he was on the edge of the water looking across it to an embankment several yards away, but not too far. And the other side of the embankment went up and down, trees, whatever. And he heard something moving around on the opposite embankment, so he stopped and waited. And a creature popped its head up, looked around, and did one push with its wings, brought its wings up and went boom, and launched straight up in the air off of one flap. And it launched so darn far he couldn't see it. It went out of sight on one flap. That is powerful. That would be.
And there's people that have said, oh, that's a tern or something, but then they see it land and it's got bat wings.
It's huge.
It's not feathered.
Yeah. You can see pictures of it.
So
pterodactyls apparently are still here and have been for hundreds of years.
Yes.
But in remote locations.
And another thing, I know that everybody has seen weird pictures of weird sea creatures that are being discovered. And I bring that up because, if we're just now discovering sea creatures, regardless of how they're being discovered, and people have said all along there are plants and animals in the rainforests that have not been discovered yet. Scientists know they're out there, but they don't know what they are. Why is it so hard to believe that these other creatures could be in existence and we just haven't? Yeah. And tell them about the theory about what's happening with the sea creatures while I pull up this article real quick.
Excellent. One of the speakers, his name is Dr. Brooks Agnew. He's former military, former researcher, a master engineer, master this, master that, a doctor of physics, a doctor of astronomy, on and on and on. He spoke at length about inner Earth and the potential for there being huge caverns under the surface of the Earth that have their own biology and ecosystems, and meaning plants and animals, and possibly even intelligent life as well. I'm being vague on purpose. And the phenomenon that Iris is referring to that he spoke about at length is with all the planet global warming and the icebergs splitting and falling apart, and ice shelves and glaciers receding for miles down and miles wide back. It is creating cracks all the way back up to the North Pole and even the South Pole, but he spoke mostly about the North Pole, leading to the very famously, you can look this up, the very famous hole that seems to be in the North Pole that even Admiral Byrd documented at length when he journeyed there and claimed to have gone inside of it and seen this jungle-like warm center of the Earth, secondary inner Earth. But what has happened?
Can you say Aquaman? If anybody's seen Aquaman?
Yeah, yes, that was one reveal, absolutely. And Journey to the Center of the Earth, that's another reveal. But anyway, the water, the ocean here is all the frozen ice up there is breaking open and creating accesses to the water and the oceans that are also in the inner Earth, meaning that the sea creatures from the inner Earth can now swim up, and apparently they do.
And this article was just printed. Oh, shit. Don't tell me.
It zoomed away.
I hit it. I hit it.
The frilled shark is one unusual creature that has not existed on the surface for millions of years, and suddenly it has showed up. This one is, which one's called? I can't see the name of this one.
This article is more than it. It's in the Guardian, and it was printed last week, May 25th.
Yes.
And it's more than 5,000 new species discovered in a Pacific deep sea mining hotspot. And this is a gummy squirrel. And I'll show you another picture of it in a minute. They called it that because it's kind of gummy and it's got a long tail.
Sort of like a jellyfish, guys.
Right. Yeah. And this is a type of sponge believed to be new to science. Not the hook thing out there, but the sponge.
The white thing.
Yeah. This is a different kind of sea anemone and whatever. And
another type of starfish.
Oh, here's another picture of the gummy squirrel.
So there's also very deep invasive deep sea mining going on, as they mentioned, going on in the Pacific as well, which means they're going to start hitting tunnels, which have water in them, which have sea creatures that have not been on the surface in millions of years, apparently. And they're coming up. So that's another way that these old beings might be coming to the surface, and you might still start hearing more about this kind of cryptid. So tonight we have a special guest, which is Tony Rodriguez. And yes. And Iris, you wanted to do an introduction of sorts?
Yeah, just a brief introduction. We just to show this, we advertised it. He is going to discuss with us his personal experiences and perspectives on ETs, UFOs, exopolitics, and if you don't know what that means, we'll tell you, and the not so secret space program. Since more and more people are learning about it, that was my attitude in this, and it's going to be a rabbit hole. We're definitely doing something a little bit different than we've done in the past, but we think our viewers
not that far different.
And yeah, it's not far different. It's just going to be a little more direct discussion about some of the things that we've alluded to before, and lots of strange things. So, and Tony, what can you add to that description about yourself?
Thanks. Firstly, thanks for having me. The subject matter of a functioning secret space program, one that is built out and is actually in the solar system working in the name of governments and corporations in the world, has proliferated. We've had plenty of great whistleblowers that came forward, and then we've had a lot of drama that and a lot of bad things happen for people that were giving this information. So the subject matter itself has been very badly beaten up over the last few years. It seems like there was no effort to stop the information originally, and now there's a great effort to silence the information. And it's very important because there's a great deal of evidence behind not only my testimony, but many other people like me. And with that huge body of evidence, it also explains a lot of things that don't make sense that are happening in our day-to-day lives in real time. So it's a very important subject. It's very important to understand that governments and corporations are working alongside extraterrestrials with radically advanced technologies, and that there is already a huge human presence from Earth in our solar system and in nearby stars. The facets of the space programs that I was involved with have been out there probably upwards of 100 years. So we're talking World War II era, and then right after that, they began settling. When I was up there in colonies on Ceres and on Mars, they were already aged. So the buildings were old. There was rust. They were aged buildings. So they were up there a very long time. I remember on Ceres colony about 250,000 people living there full time. So there's actually a very advanced and established colonies in our solar system, and people that are spacefaring, not only just in our solar system, but to many stars and in fact other galaxies. Like traveling great distances has already been settled and is sorted out. So we're seeing a lot of changes in the world right now, and I believe they're getting ready to tell us, because they're going to have to tell us the truth sooner very soon.
You're familiar with, you're probably familiar with the work of Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big on disclosure, obviously. Next week, he's doing a press conference with the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. It'll be televised on YouTube, yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, yet another person that's, that like you has tremendous credentials behind him for years, talking about, guys, we've been knowing this, doing this for decades and longer. Let me tell you. And yeah, it's getting more and more widespread. Pilots footage and military recordings that are no longer scrubbed are
Right.
making mainstream media left and right. So,
I think that a lot of people miss the point when they see the UAP phenomenon that's been admitted. They go, yeah, well, we know this. It could be some other country. It could be some exotic technology. But the point that people miss is that the physics behind of what they've released and confirmed exist open the door to deep space flight. So the physics in these UAPs, if this was China, this means that China can go to Saturn and back pretty quick. It means that China can go to Mars and we could move there very quickly. So the UAP phenomenon is a much bigger canary in the coal mine than anybody wants to admit. The mainstream doesn't want to admit. I'm a fan of the great effort that Stephen Greer has done. I differ with him in the opinion that he thinks that all species that are starfaring, spacefaring species are benevolent, and that they've reached an area where they would never harm anybody. In my experience, nature extends beyond the sky, and it's the same kind of political. They're not good or evil, right? They're not good or evil. They have their own agenda to serve their own purposes according to their perspective, the same way that countries on Earth behave. The United States is not good or evil, but we have our own perspective, and we do things that some may deem as bad, and we do things that some may deem as great, depending on perspective. And the ETs are the same exact relationship. So I differ with Dr. Greer's theory greatly in that regard, but everything else, I'm very happy for him to be championing this. Somebody has to put the effort
it's a step in the right
and
direction.
force a disclosure by the government. Otherwise, they'll keep us in the dark for as long as they can. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy because there's very solid medical technology. There is consciousness technology. There's technologies that are going to lead to people cleaning up spiritually. I say that I've said this for years, is that a lot of people don't have a role model. A lot of people, we don't aspire to be anything other than rich or a little bit more. Like we're consuming. We're programmed to consume and pay taxes. And if we saw how some of the more advanced species live, we would aspire to be better people. And so disclosure will come with some of that as well. And there's a lot that we can learn from that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think there's a lot of effort that if we saw how other species lived and tried to emulate that, then our own slave masters essentially on this earth would lose a lot because they're getting help for minimum wage, work being done, and that sort of thing. And so we would just if people all of a sudden stood up and go, we don't have to live like this anymore, then corporations would be up shit creek. So
they start losing their cash cows. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of mentality that people could do in our system that we live in right now. A lot of people don't believe that they can make their situation better. They just believe that they're living the life that they've been dealt, and that's that. And there's a collective people with their head in their sand times millions. And people could just learn that reality isn't what the television told us it was.
It's not what it's handed you, it's what you make it.
You can change your life to be much better. You are in control. They don't see us as their equal, and in fact, we are not. So biologically, we have, they had, when I was on Sirius Colony, they had intelligent life in categories, and it was based on the amount of data you could share in a conversation. So we have 150,000 to 250,000 words that we use. There were humanoids that used 500,000 or 1 million words, and they were another level of intelligence above. There were humanoids above that could do 100,000 words in a very short time telepathically. So they trade more data. So we can't even understand them. If we're in the room and there are humanoids that can trade so much data quickly, mentally, on a telepathic level that we are like an animal to them. So that's it. The person that says that, what they're saying is, how could they treat that to us, is assuming that they're at the top of the food chain, and we are not. We are not at
Yes.
the top of the food chain. We are in the middle of the we're in the beginning of the humanoid food chain. The other thing is that a lot of these beings that can see us, victimize us, they live for 500 or 1,000 years. We live for 60 to 80 years, 100 years.
They know all the tricks.
Well, I'm saying, so their respect for our life, they're like, you're going to die anyway. You're
Right.
a short-lived being anyway.
It's like a
You're not-
housefly.
That's exactly right. We don't think
Gerbils.
anything at all about lower life
Gerbils.
form. We don't bat an eye. Like you said, the chickens and the other things, we don't bat an eye at their service to us as a food supply. And a lot of these ETs, not only that, but when they're on the higher level, they don't need us as a physical food supply, as proteins. They're taking our energy.
Energy.
Our mental energy is a commodity, and our
Yeah,
consciousness
mental,
is
emotional, loosh, and
a lot of
yeah,
technology
and
is-
consciousness.
a
Yeah,
lot of technologies are ran off of consciousness, and we are a great source of that. It's better to take a consciousness from a humanoid, an 80-year human, than a cow. I did a lot of amateur astronomy, and the professional telescopes and the professional astronomers have electronic cameras that are all basically sanctioned by the United States Air Force. Then they have software in them that deletes any classified craft in the field of the telescope or in the picture that it takes in real time. So an operator of a 4-meter telescope looking at the computer screen and a UFO flew across it, they would never see it. The computer would delete it in real time. Where we're at now technologically is people have access to tools. We have 3D printers and routers, and guys that are running shops in their garage, they used to work on the Chevy, now have the ability to make some pretty advanced things. And so somebody could make a very small, a good size, not very small, but a good sized off-axis paraboloid telescope that would eliminate any kind of diffraction, and they could put a polarized spectrometer to it and absolutely figure out, somebody could do this on their own and figure out the chemical makeup of exoplanets. As they pass in front of the star, they could see the atmosphere and see proof of life. So we're going to get to the point where we can prove life, and the guys can just roll this out of their garage and do this. And so they have to tell us. They either have to get us back out of this level of technology, or they have to tell us. That's just where they're at right now.
Well, something you mentioned a
Absolutely.
minute ago that kind of caught me was you said the government is not incompetent.
That's right.
So is it, which granted, I mean, I know the government, there's a lot of people in it, and the network works just fine as far as that goes. But are they deliberately trying to portray like an incompetent leadership to throw us off?
Absolutely. So they want an incompetent leader. So what is your faith in the government today when you look at all the things they're doing, all the horrible things literally that they're doing to us? They're completely failing us on all, currently today in the United States. And I'm not trying to get anybody's vote here. I'm not
Sure.
trying to influence your vote, really. But I'm saying currently, when you look at our
you're
financial
stating
system,
facts. Yeah,
the police, the state of the laws, the homeless problem, the immigration problem, the food chain is being the inflation, all of it across the board, it's dire. Our leaders have driven the bus over the cliff. It's on purpose because we were in great shape very shortly ago, a short time ago. So it's on purpose. It's only with purpose, and it's across the globe. It's through all through South America, Peru, Brazil, Australia. I'm trying to think, Canada. These are all governments that seem to be on the same page, doing the same cookbook of things, and driving their individual economies and policies over the cliff. So there is a concerted effort. There is a conspiracy of the elites on one end, that, or at least it seems to be that way, that there's a concerted effort to get to a certain end. There's a means to justify, there's an end that they want to justify the means of what they're doing. So they're not telling us what they're doing, but they do have something in mind because they're not this incompetent. They're all on the same page. Believe me,
Yeah.
when the government wants to get rid of something, they get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking theory right now, but
Right.
right.
like I said, there
Right.
are people. So let's say that there's a disclosure of it right now.
Okay.
That they
Okay.
go, okay, so by the way, we have bases on the moon. There's 1 million people on the moon. There's 10 million people on Mars. There's people on Ceres. There's an intergalactic treated base, several bases around Jupiter. And these guys are the Federation of Worlds, and these guys are the Orion Group, and there are several other groups. We all do business. And they're in our solar system. And by the way, our solar system is a main hub for traffic in the galaxy. They admit this, and they come down. The first rally cry from the American public is going to say, where's our stuff? Where's our free stuff you're going to give us? Where's my spaceship? I need to get up there. Why? Me. So we're not mentally, we've been programmed to be a powder keg so that they could burn it all down on purpose. You know, some people with a few flips of the switch, they can they make us burn our own cities down. So this is my first book, Series Colony Cavalier. It was a bestseller in autobiographies for when it came out. I think I did 6 weeks at number one. I was very proud of that, very unexpected. It's the story. It's not a PG. It's not a Star Trek episode. It's very disturbing. It's the story of what I went through. In 2015, I got an MRI scan and coincidentally came across Randy Kramer's account about the 20-year tour, about people being taken into these programs, used for 20 years in several programs, and then put back the same day that they were taken. So how the mechanism of technology could be, is still up for grabs, how they do that. But I was taken and lived for 20 years and then put right back the next night. That happened, and as I got the memories all came to me in a chunk over a few weeks. I got big chunks of the memories, and I started looking up places. Fortunately for me, most people that are taken in these programs are taken off-world, straight to Mars or the moon, and they do service in these military programs that are in the space program. I was privately owned. I was kind of shut through the side door, and I lived on places on Earth for the first 6 years of my 20 years, 6 or 7 years. And when I got these memories back, I went, wait a minute. I remembered living in Peru. I remembered living in Seattle. And not just a few memories. I mean, I remembered years of details of memories and the people there. And so the first thing I did was look them up. And when I saw the places, so if you understand what this could feel like, imagine if you woke up tomorrow and you remembered living for 2 years in Peru, somewhere that you can prove you've never been. And then you look on Google and go, oh, there it is. And it's exactly there was a pond you went fishing at. There was an airport you'd walk to. The same distance, the house, the cafeteria where you got food, the place you stayed, the place you met your friends, played soccer. All these things that you had, all these memories just fall in one day and go, what is this? And then go and look on Google somewhere you've never looked, never been, and you can prove it, and then see it's all exactly how you remember it right there. That is the experience that I have. And at that point, I thought, I need to contact somebody. I can't take this to the grave. I did that, and I looked, and I found the house in Seattle. I actually went to Seattle in 2016 and knew my way around. So imagine that. I was driving around, and I knew the route. I knew my way where I was and somewhere I've never been. And I went through that experience. And then as I began to research the time and space, there are other whistleblowers that corroborated many things. NASA even corroborated. I said that it was a geyser on the Ceres colony, on the Ceres planetoid, the dwarf planet in between Mars and the asteroid belt. There's a place called the Okator crater, Okator, or whatever, however you want to pronounce it. And there were white spots. There's the slide. Okay. There were white spots. You can see it right under where it says Alliance is. Right under the is, you can see the white spots.
The salt flats. Yeah.
So right there. So in 2016, when the Dawn probe was about this far out taking these pictures, I was asked by Dr. Sala and other researchers I was working with, what are those white spots? And I said, that's a geyser. And the geyser has salty water, like ocean water, and it sprays it up in the air, and then the water evaporates and the salt snows back down. That's salt. And so the Dawn probe made a first spectral analysis at high altitude, and it said it's probably sulfur and a few other minerals, not salt. But that was the first theory that NASA gave. And Dr. Sala wrote me an email. He said, do you want to retract your statement? And I said, absolutely not. That is salt. This is in 2006, end of 16, I believe, early 17. I said, absolutely not. That is salt. Believe me, there's a little bit of magnesium and there's salt. It's just salt. And I remember vividly flying over it in close proximity in a ship, looking and watching the geyser. We actually took time from our posts. I worked on a cargo ship at the time for the Ceres Colony Corporation, and it was something you never forget. So In August of 2020, NASA had concluded, because the Dawn probe went to a lower orbit and it did a better high-quality spectral analysis, and concluded that it was briny salt. And so I was confirmed with that. So the same way that things on Earth lined up that were proved, the same way that Peru, the places I called out that are there, the same way that are people and historical events in Peru that I've called out that have researched and been able, the same way that people and places and classifications of the districts in Inyo, Kern, California, and in Seattle, the places, all these things keep lining up. So that's why I'm still talking about it. You know, like I wouldn't have the guts to come on here and tell this story if I didn't have something to back it up a little bit. I understand that anybody listening to this should be skeptical, and that's fine. It'd be weird if you were not. But these things can't be explained away. How did I know that that was salt 4 years ahead of time? And this is a collection of stories, and this is the sequel. It's called Project Star Maker, and it was just released a few weeks ago. And I think it's number one in reincarnation right now. It's number one. But it's a shorter book. It's not an equal, it's a sequel. But it's a collection of stories that are around the spiritual aspects of it. Of my memories of this, other things that turned out that are not provable, things that are not provable, but a lot of other people relate to, I hate the word resonate, but they resonate with. But I'm saying once you look back on your life and realize that no matter what, if you've lived a decent amount of time, you've experienced a good amount of things. And so when you can concentrate on that, be thankful of that, it's very easy to be your honest self. And and other people try to beat you down, like people with big egos will beat you down. Oh, I've got a private jet, you don't. And if you just become bulletproof to that and understand that, that's great, I'm happy for you, but I also have, a 4-year-old. And so everybody is equal in a certain amount of emotional.
I got a 4-year-old and I'm not afraid to use it.
That's right. We all have something that's a big accomplishment that eats up our life, that eats up a big amount of our life that is a great accomplishment. It might not be a 4-year-old, it might be a hobby, it might be anything. But I'm saying everybody has something that they can be proud of. Everyone.
Yeah.
And if you can just be thankful for what you have, you don't have to worry about the egos that are the weak attack of the ego. And so that, I think, I was living that life. I was living that life of trying to project that I was, before I got my memories back, 2010 to 2014, I was on the treadmill, and I thought that there might be this dollar amount that makes me worth something, makes people love me one day, that makes me worthwhile, worth my dad's pride. I might hit a dollar amount. There might be a score or a number that I hit that makes me worth living. And when I gave all that up, after I got my memories back, I also had the memories of the suffering. And then it made me very appreciative of where I was, because I remembered all the hell that I went through. And so I went, wait a minute, I'm happy how it is. I don't need that number. I don't need any of this. And I let go of it all. And I've been very happy ever since. Happiness is a conscious decision. You have to decide to hate somebody. You have to decide to love somebody. You have to decide to stay with somebody. Marriage isn't thrown upon you. You have to make a conscious decision that I'm, for better or worse, and you have to say, I'm going to be happy. I'm not going to let today I'm not going to just be bitter today. I'm going to be happy today. And when I started to do that, my life turned around, and it's been worth living since then. It's been really good.
So we're so glad you're here, Katie. And so first of all, my biggest question at the moment is, I can understand somebody being drawn to meteorology. In fact, I'm friends with a guy who graduated from Harvard in meteorology, and now he's like on TV in Washington and stuff like that. And we actually chit chat on Facebook. So I get that interest. And if you've got a scientific brain at all, yeah. But how did you go from meteorology to etherology?
That's a really good question. So yes, I have a background in meteorology and science education, and I studied climatology and meteorology for many years. I was doing broadcast meteorology, doing live TV and radio, and then I was diving into the research aspect, and then I ended up switching into science teaching, and I just wasn't getting a fulfillment. As I kept advancing in my career, I felt just more and more depressed. I can't explain it, but it wasn't fulfilling. And, science was teaching me that there's a formula for everything. And I kept thinking, that's all I needed was math and science. And then I went through this whole spiritual awakening thing. I can't explain it, but one day I realized I just didn't know anything. And I started hearing things from the other side. I started having all these trippy experiences that can't be explained by science or mathematics. And I thought I was losing my mind. And I was getting visions, having lucid dreams, like communicating with dead people. Oh my gosh, it was just intense. And I can't explain it, but it was almost like I went through an ego death, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I started to also see the corruption within the system, and seeing there's a lot more to the weather than what people have been told. There's a lot of things out there that are going on that the public is not aware of. A lot of our weather is being geoengineered and manipulated. And
HARP.
Yes.
HAARP. Go look it up, people. HARRP. HARP.
Yes. Oh, that makes me feel so happy because
hell yeah, honey.
I was so scared.
I see the chemtrails all the time.
Yes.
And then it rains, and it's like, what are you doing to us?
Vietnam.
Yes.
Vietnam. They actually talked about it in the mainstream media, controlling the weather during the Vietnam War.
Yes.
So anyway, we digress. Yes, we are way on board with what you're alluding to.
Yes, weather weaponry. There's weather weaponry. Yes. There's geoengineering. There's so much that the general public is unaware of. And after spending 7 years studying meteorology and climatology well into my graduate studies and not being aware of the real truth until after investing all of my time and resources into all of that, when I started to find the truth and discover it, I was like, wow, there is so much more to this than what I've been told and what I had been indoctrinated to believe. Mm-hmm. And then most of my wisdom today isn't from my education. It's from the divine wisdom from above. And and I was like, okay. And I was very upset when I found out that a lot of what I had been conditioned to believe was not the full story. But then I said, you know what, there's something to this. Then I became passionate about making videos exposing the chemtrails. I got flagged on on one of my videos for being a conspiracy theorist. So
good girl. That's a badge of honor nowadays.
Be proud of that.
As I said, be proud of that. Yeah. If they're censoring you, you've said something that they're terrified others will hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what censorship is. Stopping people from hearing something the censor person doesn't want them to hear. So you pushed a button. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't expect for any of this to come out because I had so much fear around talking about this for so long, because my very last year in teaching as a science teacher, I began sharing some of these truths with my students. And I thought that it was okay to speak freely as a science teacher and teach the truth. But apparently, if you're not sticking to the indoctrination plan completely, you're considered a threat. So I was just teaching the truth, and I guess they didn't want the truth. They wanted us to keep teaching, the
narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up losing my job. I never got a reason for why I lost my job, but I think that could have maybe been potentially a link. I don't know. Because then I started having some creepy, weird experiences happen around that time after I lost my job. And so I was like, okay. So I got really depressed because I thought, okay, maybe I need to keep my mouth shut. I don't need to be speaking anymore. And I was like, okay. And teaching was my life. I loved kids. I loved sharing the truth. But, after that, I got traumatized and I decided to stay quiet.
That was a tough shift for you. Yeah.
Very tough. And then I decided, okay, well, what is my purpose now? And I got so depressed. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I was like, okay, so I was like, if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be to help people. And I had a dream one night and it involved angels, and I can't explain it, but I told the angels I don't want to be here anymore. And they had me look down on planet Earth. I was above somewhere in another dimension. And they had me hear every cry and scream of everybody on the planet that's going through pain or suffering at the same time. And it was so overwhelming. I said, I can't take it anymore. And they said, Caitlin, this is why you agreed to come to Earth, to help with lessening the suffering of people across the globe. There is so much suffering on the planet right now. You are needed. You agreed to fulfill this mission. You can't come home until you finish fulfilling your mission. So I wake up and I'm like, oh God. And then all of a sudden I start taking Reiki classes, shaman classes. And then I became a weather shaman, because my old self is the meteorologist, weather girl. The new self is the shaman. I decided to try to, instead of
Natural transition.
Yep, weather shaman. So former meteorologist, now a shaman, eclectic weirdo. And I'm combining both lifetimes. That's your Earth job there, but you're doing a lot of divine work behind that Earth job, and you are having a ripple effect on everybody, and you are raising the consciousness of everyone on that campus. You are basically the way shower, the light worker, the one who's meant to trigger and activate people to higher levels of consciousness.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But I don't, and I guess I wish that everybody could see how they can do the same.
Yes.
The ripples that everybody puts out, and the ripples that the negative ripples people put out, if they flipped it, wow, can you imagine how we would be?
Yeah.
If the people that are over there bitch nagging about something, if they would stop a minute and realize.
Did you say bitch nagging?
Yes.
I like that.
I do too.
Oh, you haven't heard that?
Oh, I love creating new swear words. That's great. Bitch nagging. Oh, I love it. Alternative swearing is just as good as original swearing. It's great.
Oh, no, that's one that I carry with me all the time. And would you quit bitch nagging about that?
I like that. I think that's fascinating.
That's power words used appropriately. They're good. Yeah.
Now, you're an English professor, Margot. Would you say that that's proficient English?
Absolutely. It's your appropriate use of the syntax and context of both words. Plus, it had a poetic, resonance to it. Bitch nagging flows. It's not complicated to say mechanically. So, on all levels. Yeah. Linguistically, syntax, all of it. So, do you host events for the? I know you said you treat local people as well. Do you host any classes or public events or whatever?
So this past year, I actually was asked to go to Greensboro and to help lead meditation and singing bowl circles around the full moon and the new moon throughout the summer months. And so I did help by doing that. And I brought my bowls with me, and I packed up some shaman drums, maracas, and all my sound healing tools, and gave everybody an instrument and had everybody play a different instrument. And I guided us in some deep breathing and meditation. And going forward, I do have some ideas in the works, and I would like to do more of that, to host classes, retreats, and lead meditations. That's things that I'm working towards.
Thank you for joining the Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod. Find us at facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo, on YouTube under @Iris Carter Enterprises, and on various podcast aggregators. Copyright 2023 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears.